Hey guys, so I took Friday and yesterday to not do any videos. Wasn't really feeling it Friday, and yesterday I was not really in the mood as well. But because of that, I'm doing a longer video today for you guys. So I figured, uh, let's go over type combinations I haven't used. Because why not? It'd be interesting to just kind of throw out some ideas that I thought of this morning for them. Not to say that I haven't thought of ideas for them before this morning, but this morning in particular, I had a few ideas. Not that I'm going to be using any of these for anything ever for any reason whatsoever, but just ideas. So, you know, start from the normal types that don't have type combination with others. We have a normal ice. So honestly, the easiest way to go about a normal ice type is to probably look at just wild animals that live in the Arctic and just kind of go from there. I mean, you have hares and foxes in particular that I can think of that are electric and or electric, normal and ice. Um, and that in itself, is a very interesting type combo, and it's it's interesting uh, because it's really bad defensively, but you could make some interesting animals out of it. Like we already have Vulpix, which is the Arctic fox with its lowland form, but they went into the fairy typing with it, not normal, which makes sense. Hair, you could do normal. You could also do electric ice with hair. It's a really fast electric ice type, just as a concept. It's something you could easily do with it. Um, I like to think at least. Normal poison. So poison kind of is a weird typing because it kind of acts like a trumping type to any other secondary, like primary type that you could give it that could be considered to be normal. However, that's not to say it's impossible to do. So just from like a quick search, like there are some species of shrew that are poisonous. Obviously, I'm fairly certain not to humans or anything, but like probably to animals or to insects. Which is interesting that if you just expanded upon that, you could get some very interesting stuff going on with that. But I think a better idea would actually be to take a platypus. Honestly, yes, I know people would argue a water type, but it's a mammal, not a like yeah, you got like weasel and you got some other mammalian water types, but honestly, the platypus is such a weird creature that I feel like you could give it a normal typing and it's just like, yeah, I guess we just got to accept this. And you could give it like Swift Swim or something just to go with. Actually, to be fair, platypuses aren't even that good of swimmers, if I recall correctly. I mean, they could like dodge and whatnot, but like they're not fast per se. So maybe a evasion boosting water ability. That'd be interesting. Um, Normal bug, once again, is kind of one of those types that trumps anything that you could consider to be normal. Um, so honestly, the best thing I can think of is just go with the most basic of insects. I mean, you have two options with that. You have ants and you have beetles. Ants are kind of the foundation that we consider bugs to kind of like like when you think of a bug, your first instinct is usually probably an ant, maybe a spider, which technically isn't a bug, but that's its own conversation. Um, or like maybe a roach or something. But like those are your first few inclinations usually. The other side of it is you could use a beetle. Beetle being one of, if not like the most diverse group of insects, just given how many species there are of beetles. So there is possibility there to use a beetle as a concept for it. I'm not sure how, but you'd have to make probably the most boring, generic looking thing ever, and that would not be an interesting Pokemon, but just saying that is a possibility. Normal rock is weird because like when you imagine rock, you don't imagine normal typing. To be fair, I kind of thought of the idea of a grass rock for something like Rillaboom when it was, put together, but obviously it's not, didn't happen, which they could have done and it would have been actually pretty cool. But probably like I would have thought of like also Rockruff. Rockruff also seems like it could have easily had a normal typing attached to its rock typing, and then maybe like changed that normal typing on its different evolution types. Like Midnight form could have gained dark typing, dusk form could have been fire, dawn form or day form could have kept the normal typing. Um, just as a concept, because that would have been more interesting than what it currently is, personally. Sorry. Um, but otherwise, I'd say, kind of going along with like Drillbur in a way, making a mole. Taking a mole of some kind, giving it rock like apparatuses for digging, kind of like Drillbur as it is, just maybe focus on like the star-nosed one, star-nosed mole, if that's what it's called. I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure it's the star-nosed mole. Maybe turn that into some sort of rock dousing sort of thing, maybe, just as a concept, as an idea, just, once again, as I thought of this morning. Normal steel, once again, is that situation where steel and normal, they don't naturally meld, if that makes sense. So essentially you'd be working with something that was given armor, essentially, which doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, but that's it. Something that has like somehow stolen a piece of armor. The only other thing I could think of was taking something like a tire and making it into a Pokemon. Taking rubber and making that count as the normal type, and then the rim as the steel type. That's what my brain went to as like the most logical thing other than armor. So, Firegrass. Listen, everyone and their mother has thought of the two Firegrass ideas. Literally, the real life thing called Firegrass and peppers of some form or fashion. Those are the two. There's no other way. I mean, there is another way. I've thought of another way. I'm not telling you what that other way is. I'm going to keep that for myself. And it's going to be very fun. I mean, just as an idea. I like my idea. It's interesting. But I digress. Fire Fairy, honestly, the two things that came to mind were things like Wisps, which normally are more equated with Ghost, but you could easily give it, the fairy typing and still have it work very well. The other side of it is something like a fire spirit or sprite, or elemental, like a fire elemental. Normally, when you imagine them within like mythos and whatnot, it's an entity that is completely fire. But that doesn't mean that there's like spiritual energy or anything like that involved with it. And that's generally what the fairy typing is fairy magic. It's magic, essentially. The two magic types or the three magic types essentially are dragon, psychic, and fairy. So, if you're not using ghost, dark, any of those others for an elemental, you're either doing a just fire type, which would be boring, but if you do fire fairy, it could be pretty interesting. Also, elementals never generally have a defined form. They take on whatever form they choose, generally speaking, so you could kind of do whatever you want design-wise with something like that, so it could work well. Electric fighting. Now, this is an interesting thing, because there is kind of like a misconception with unboxing, but it works for our purposes, is that there's this triangle theory with unboxing for the idea of a swarmer, an outboxer, and a slugger. And essentially, it's a rock, paper, scissors. The slugger beats the swarmer beats the outboxer beats the slugger. So essentially, swarmer hits really hard, or not really hard, it hits really fast, repetitively, doesn't give your opponent time to think. The slugger hits really, really hard, but not very often, and can take blows. An outboxer tries to keep his distance, let his opponents wear themselves out, that sort of thing. And within the theory, swarmers can kind of keep close enough to the outboxer where they don't give them the time to take a break or anything like that. The outboxer beats the slugger because they can dodge their punches and just kind of, lay in when they see opportunities. And then the slugger doesn't mind getting hit by a bunch of weak jabs by the swarmer, and one good blow will knock the swarmer out. Now, that's the theory. Of course, it's not accurate per se, but it does lead to the idea of the swarmer hitting really hard, or not really hard, hitting really, really fast. Well, electric types are known for their speed. Like, it's honestly one of their qualities, one of their best parts of them is the fact that they hit really, really fast, usually. So you could take that element, throw it into the fighting typing, and then do whatever you want with the design for it. It's just that you would be working with the swarmer goal in mind of really fast punches. And yes, I know that we have Hitmonchan already, but Hitmonchan doesn't actually embody any particular style. They just kind of do everything between Focus Punch, Thunder Punch, Mach Punch, all these different punches. Like there's just no Bullet Punch. There's no consistency behind it. Like, they aren't focused into one sort of category. So it's just a concept. And speaking of, there's also the ground fighting type that doesn't have a type combination, which is crazy because you'd expect it. Like, ground fighting, it seems like you could do so much. Like, you could even make like a dirty fighter who uses like sand to fight in some way, form, or fashion, lowering accuracy, getting sand in your opponent's eyes. But to be fair, you could also say that could be a slugger. You could make a triangle out of them even, where the outboxer is like a flying fighting type, where they use that to keep their distance. Still weak to the swarmer's electric type attacks, but the slugger can't hit them with the ground type moves, just as a concept. And the slugger hits them not very effectively due to the flying typing. So just as a concept, it's something that could be utilized. If somebody were wanting to indulge in that sort of thing. Ice poison is weird because they are two very different statuses. Like, when something's cold, you don't imagine it to be poisonous, and when something's poisonous, you don't really imagine it to be cold. I mean, there's always the whole cold embrace of death, but that's more of a ghost or even dark type thing. And usually ice doesn't really have anything poisonous involved with it, but the idea in my head was maybe taking something like a snake or something that can deliver a bite that injects poison to your opponent, but that poison is like a cold seeping ice. It freezes through your opponent, essentially. That's the concept. I'm not saying that that's a good idea. I'm just saying that is an idea. So just, it's really hard to work with ice poison. I have a different idea that I'm working with that I really, really enjoy. Don't really know what to do with a design for it, but I like the idea in the first place. So yeah, that's just me. Completely different thing from what I just said then, but yeah. Fairy fighting. So it's interesting because they're two very different things. Fairies are magic. Fairy is magic. Fighting is very physical and normal-esque. But there's always the possibility of things like Valkyries. But also just like working within Fae mythology, you could technically say goblins are fairies. So you could say that a fairy fighting type could be a goblin because they are known for their very aggressive behavior and group combat, prowess. Group combat prowess, not single. They don't do well on their own, but as a group, they're dangerous. Poison steel. So this is one that a lot of people want to do and want to make, but the thing is that they're diametrically different because steel is just completely immune to poison. So it sounds like it wouldn't work, but a couple ideas is something like toxic waste. That's one that a lot of people have had is ideas like toxic waste. But another idea I had just kind of, on a whim was the idea of using something like oil drilling and about the whole ecological issues that happen with that. You could always make a statement with it due to you drill for oil, a mistake happens, and suddenly there's oil everywhere, and it's causing ecological disaster. That's poisonous, poison to the world. So, just a concept. Not trying to be political or anything with that, but just it's an idea. You could even say like a oil ship sinking off the coast. That's always fun. That's a joke. That's not fun. But it's just an idea, concept. Oh, Ground Fairy. So there's a very obvious one that I think a lot of people have probably said in the past. I can't be 100% sure, but there's something called the Pink Fairy Armadillo, which is just this little armadillo. And yeah, when you imagine armadillos, you imagine ground types. And so with it being Pink Fairy, you could easily do a Pokemon based off of it. At the same time, though, going back to the Fire Fairy, you could use a elemental once again, an Earth Elemental. Once again, they can take on whatever shape they want. It's technically magic, fae, wilds, and shit. Like there's something there that you could easily use one way or another with Earth Fairy as far as like elementals go. Bug Dragon. Okay, so Bug Dragon is one of those things where a lot of people will immediately go Dragonfly, and I don't agree with it. I don't think Dragonflies should be Bug Dragon by any stretch of the imagination. You'd have to horrifically disform a Dragonfly to make that happen, and I don't want to see it happen. Now, counter to this, there is a concept that I know exists already, and this is within a old PS1 game called Legend of the Dragoon. And one of the first Dragoons that you fight in the game is a Bug Dragon. It is a mantis dragon, essentially. It is a praying mantis combined with a dragon. That is cool. That is a cool concept, a cool combination, and what I would probably go with personally as an idea. Bug Dark. Now, this is weird. We don't have a Bug Dark type at all in any way, form, or fashion. And it's so strange. I wish we did. And I have 3 ideas. One of them I'm keeping for myself, but you have the classic mosquito. Mosquitoes are bloodsuckers. That kind of makes them kind of dark. Yes, you could say flying, but you could also just give it something like levitate or an ability akin to levitate that just basically says that, yeah, it's technically flying. But it's also bug dark. The other idea I had was a spider. Now, here's the thing. We do have a lack of spiders, and I hate saying that sentence, but we have a lack of spiders in Pokemon. Mostly Araquanid and Ariados. There we go. I couldn't remember it for a second there. However, you could easily make a spider that's not poisonous, not a water skimmer, and make it just an aggressive hunter spider of some kind, whether it be a wolf spider or anything else akin to that. You could easily do your dark bug with that. It would probably work pretty well, I would honestly say. Rock Ghost. Oh god, this should have existed. This should have existed in Gen 8, if not Gen 5. This should have existed with Rudin or Regius, but for some reason they fucked that up. I don't know how they did that, but it should have been a Rock Ghost type, straight up. Now, you could do something like a Golem, once again, but kind of maybe do like, so I'm sure that you guys have played Breath of the Wild, or somebody's played Breath of the Wild who's watched this. If you haven't, you should probably go play it, but there's these stone golems that exist in that. I forget what they're called. It starts with a T. It's been a while since I played it, but they are essentially just moving chunks of rock, but if you were to justify that their motion is due to ghost, mobility, like ghost presence, that's a really good way to go about it, probably, is making it a moving sentient chunk of stone that is really bulky and really strong, but slow. That'd probably be your way to go about it. So now we're at the only Mega Evolution that's a unique type combination, flat out. So giving it an actual Pokemon would be a really good idea, and that's Fairy Dragon. Honestly, the best idea I could come up with in a short period of time was something akin to like a butterfly winged dragon. Now you could say that's the bug dragon, but I would say it's more like fairy wing butterfly wings, because a lot of times with fairies they have butterfly wings. Like that's just straight up how it is. I wouldn't say that a normal looking fairy is a bug fairy. Like that just no, that's not no. So it's a case of using fairy wings, aka butterfly wings, as the wings for the dragon, and then having it be very cutesy. That would probably be your best bet for such a thing. Fire electric. So the only thing that's fire electric is heat rotom. So I'd like to provide a actual, fire electric type. So the thing is that static electricity is probably the best way to go about it. The thing is that electricity is the cause of a lot of fires, like probably 50%. I'm not sure in the exact statistics. You've got very few other ways other than like grease fires and whatnot. So usually electricity is the starting cause of fires, at least within our modern society. So the thing is that you could easily use something that generates enough static electricity to create heat, to create fire. It's probably the best way to go about such a thing. And it's just you need something that can, there was a bug, something that can just generate enough static electricity via its own body to be able to create sparks and lightning bolts. Would be interesting, but I'm going to skip this one because it's probably the stupidest idea I have on this entire list. And so we're going to go to another stupid idea, probably the second stupidest idea on my entire list. Electric grass. Electric grass is like probably the best way you can go about it is making a battery, a living battery. So you'd probably use like a potato or a pickle. I'm not joking. That's probably your best bet is to use a pickle or a potato clock. I'm not joking. That's probably your best bet. And then the actual dumbest idea, fire ice. Galarian Darmanitan's the only fire ice type Pokemon. And honestly, the best way to go about that would probably be, it's stupid, an igloo. I'm not joking. Igloos are very capable of retaining heat within themselves without melting. So honestly, I don't know how you would make an igloo work, but that would be your best bet probably, is an igloo that is capable of retaining or emitting or is like an oven or something. I don't know how you would make it work. I'm not going to make it work, but that's probably your best bet. Honestly, Galarian Darmanitan Zen mode is probably the best way to go about it, but angry snowman. So other than that, that's it. So I'm not gonna go over the legendaries that are by themselves. I don't care. Legendaries are fine. They can keep their unique typings. I don't care. But anyway, I've been talking for way too long, so I'm gonna let you guys go. Hope you have a great night. I'm gonna talk to you guys tomorrow, and stay safe. Have a good one. Later.